get the same score in golf. They all tied and they're all the best.
No, you're the best.
Oh, okay. if we get multiple people who play golf and they all score the same score, I'm the best.
No, you're just the best anyway. Anyway, hey,
That's what I'm
welcome
saying. I'm
everybody.
the best. Hi.
We've been I put us live
Oh,
for that.
that's so funny.
Yeah. So you got to hear Ryan talk about golf. I never get to listen to Ryan talk about golf.
Oh, I've never played golf. No, I've played golf. Um, one time. It didn't go that great. In fact, I was so slow that the people behind us were getting annoyed, and it was clear, and so I just picked up my ball and walked to the next hole. Because, yeah, I'm a courteous kind of person, and I'd rather them enjoy their game than me not enjoy mine.
Yeah, that's like the most. Like I have played golf like a handful of times in my life, and like I think the thing I said more than anything was, "Hey, you want to play through?"
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Because we were super slow. But I agree, mini golf is the best.
Mini golf. Now that's a good game.
Adventure
I love
mini golf.
Yeah. I'll play
Adventure mini golf, blacklight mini golf. There's one of those. Well, there was one of those places before COVID, and
that sounds
Lansing,
awesome.
Which, yeah.
Oh man, I want to go there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still there.
That sounds like a blast.
Might be there, might not be there, but anyway. Yeah. Welcome to Golfing Wednesday.
No. If we're gonna do golfing something, we gotta pick a day of the week that starts with a G. Oh, there isn't one? Oh well.
Well, they all start with G.
Yeah, silent invisible
silent G. That's exactly right. Yes, welcome everybody to Don't Worry Wednesday. This is a show that's all about you guys, your topics, your stuff that you might be going through, anything that you would like us to talk about. There's not really any sacred. I can't think of a topic that we refused doing. Can you think of one?
There was never a topic that we refused doing. There was one topic. There have been topics where we're like, oh man, how do we get to that one? But we did them anyways.
Yes, that's true.
There has not been a topic we haven't done. That's right.
All right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But anyway, welcome you guys. We love this time that we get to spend with you. We love that you're here. We love seeing you guys in the chat. We love all of our lurkers as well. You guys that hang out and listen to us. You guys that, it doesn't fit in your schedule, so you listen to it later. We love you as well. And we just want to do anything we can to help, anything we can to do to offer some perspective. And we're not professional therapists. We're not counselors. We're professional musicians, which lends it's like kind of weird, but hey, you know what? We love you guys and we want to help. So, yeah, so we're not a substitute for therapy, but, even when you're going through something, and we might recommend therapy. I know I've done that numerous times because sometimes things take some professional help to, unpack and get through and, start to see all the little nuances that maybe you didn't see throughout the process. But we want to just be your friend. We want to help in any way we can. We want to offer you some love and encouragement and hugs and all that kind of stuff. And then some perspective as well. We know that you probably can figure this stuff out on your own. You're smart enough to do so, but it sure is nice to know that you have people in your corner, and we want to be those people. We want to be in your corner. We want to cheer you on. We want to help you out. You can always DM us on Discord, and I have the links for that somewhere here. I can put it in the chat. Let's see. There we go. You may reach out to us on Discord. There it is. Watch me copy paste this like a boss.
Bam.
Boom, like a boss right there.
Oh, like a boss. Yeah. Like a boss.
So yeah, man, how you doing, you guys in the chat? You guys look great. I can tell just by seeing your words that you're typing. I can tell you just look amazing. And obviously, the man above me, Ryan, he looks just super.
I look super.
Super duper.
Super duper what?
Mm-hmm. Super duper.
Super duper.
Amazing. Super duper.
Super duper.
Oh, we even got the hair flips. Thanks, Neonsai. You're awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad to hear you're really good. Well, kinda, and momentarily forgot about your problems.
Ooh, wow, that's good. Well, welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. That's the place where we can not forget about our problems, but hopefully not worry over them. I think that's it's kind of interesting.
Hey, I don't know how to pronounce that. Mianglios? Mianglioche?
Mianglioche? Wow.
Mianglioche.
It could be Italian. Yeah, it could be Italian. Mianglioche.
Manglioche. That's the Italian way of doing it, right?
It would have to be CCE to be che, I think. Wouldn't it? Isn't it double C in Italian, the ch sound?
I don't know.
I could be wrong. I don't know my Italian very well anymore. I mean, not that I ever did, I guess. I don't know why I said anymore.
Yeah,
I used to know some
Italian.
rules that I forgot, but I certainly never knew Italian.
The only Italian I ever saw was on sheet music. Every once in a while you'd get a piece, that was in Italian, like the little instructions or whatever. The stuff in italics was Italian, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
Does that mean everything in Italian is in italics? Or everything in italics is Italian?
Maybe that's where the word italics comes from. Italian, italics.
Maybe.
Can't be true.
Mayanglios.
What do you say with a Spanish accent, man?
Mayanglios. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it figured out one of these times.
Wow.
Please forgive the absurdity of my mouth. But
yeah, mine too.
But anyway, it's great to have you here, and thank you guys all for being here. We have some topics, and we have some urgent topics. So we're gonna just jump right in. We're gonna, Ash, I see you here in the chat. We're gonna just go ahead and start with yours, if that's all right. Yeah, because we've got some urgent ones, and if I remember correctly, there's a lot of relationship topics on here too, which is gonna be entertaining.
Prepare yourselves for
the Joe Hammer. Oh boy.
Joe Hammer. Is that your new name? Should I put that in your little box? Joe Hammer.
Joe Hammer.
Awesome. Joe Hammer.
Avatar. Aang. Like Aang from Avatar.
Oh, it's really close. It sounds like Aang.
Aang?
I've never.
Mayanglios.
Aang.
Mayanglios. I like it.
Mayanglios. Okay. That's cool.
Yep. And Ash, there's no need for you to apologize. I enjoy doing relationship topics. It kind of gives me a chance to stretch my legs and,
crack your knuckles and
crack my knuckles. Hey, it's okay. But anyway, all right. So we'll just jump right in. This is called Not What I Thought. And it's from Ash. And what I will do is I will go ahead and get it put up here on the screen, so you guys can read along. Oops. There we go. I'm figuring it out. Oh, shoot. What?
You got this, Joe. You're the best, man. Yeah, you do. I believe in you, man.
You believe in it? Thanks.
See? You're welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for believing. All right, cool. So I'm going to get this put up on the screen for you, and you can read it while I read it aloud. So, all right, here we go. This is from Ash, and this is called Not What I Thought. And it reads as follows. This is mostly just a little vent. On Thursday, I broke up with my boyfriend. We had a big argument, and I realized that we share very different views on certain subjects. Looking back, some of the things he did were a bit controlling. Whenever we had an argument, he'd try to force me to share his view on whatever the thing was, from gun control laws to transgender people just not being trans. A close friend of mine is trans, and a close friend of his back in middle school is also trans. Even while I was trying to explain DID, which I think is dissociative identity disorder, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right.
To him and the science behind it, he just wouldn't listen to me. I told me that it wasn't possible. Then moved on to it was concerning and not normal, when DID is a lot more normal than one would think. He always said, think about it from my point of view, but then never told me how it is from his point of view. Even looking back to other stuff, he didn't want me to cut my hair, which I was fine with at the time because I really wanted and liked long hair, but now I think I'm going to finally cut it. He didn't like me to wear really ripped jeans, stuff like that. I thought I would be sadder. I was with him for 2 years. Maybe it's just because I haven't really allowed myself to think about it too much. After school, I've just been playing games. Then I'll call my friends and play games with them until I have to get off. Then I'll just stay up on my Switch talking to people or playing games until I get really tired or pass out. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with him. I wanted to marry him. I wanted to go to college with him. And now that's all gone. But I'm not crying like I thought I'd be. I'm just so numb and tired. Like I said before, maybe it's just because I haven't thought about it much. Well, that's my little vent. I don't really know what more to say now. Thank you guys, Ash. And wow, thank you, Ash. Thank you for this topic. Thank you for trusting us to read through part of your life like this. I mean, this is definitely a big moment. You know, anytime I've been in a relationship that's lasted a long time and then broke up, it's painful, you know, and you get this whole whirlwind of emotions, and sometimes you feel good about it, sometimes you feel bad about it, sometimes you just don't feel anything. And I can remember having friends and they're like, well, what you need to do is this, and what you need to do is this, and you need to jump right back in the saddle and find another girl. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I just got through all that. I don't want, like, you know? But, you know, the thing is a lot of times you gotta tread this path and you feel alone, even though you're really not. A lot of people have been through breakups before. A lot of people have been through, you know, serious relationships, you know, that have lasted a long time and have broken up. And there's all kinds of different things. I will say that from the dynamic that you've described in your topic, you know, him wanting you to agree with him on everything and, you know, not really liking your point of view and, you know, different things like that. I mean, that can definitely lead to a stressful relationship over time. And so who knows? I mean, I'm in part of me wants to say I'm happy for you that you're out just because of my stance on relationships. But at the same time, you know, I'm sorry because I know how much this hurts and I know how much it can, you know, cause you, like you said, to just feel numb and maybe you don't feel anything. So Ash, my heart goes out to you. I'm very sorry that you are going to experience this time of healing. Well, I'm glad that there'll be a time of healing, but the pain is never fun. So, you have some updates in the chat already. My friends keep hinting that they want me to get back with one of my exes since we're finally in contact again, and he's an amazing guy. But they also don't want me to get with anyone right now, and I don't either. Another thing is that it was a long distance relationship. I don't think I want to do that again. Um, I totally can understand that, like sometimes you just need some space to breathe. You need some time to figure out who you are, especially, I don't know how the dynamic of your relationship was, but if there was any kind of manipulation to try and get you to see his point of view, you might have to take some time to figure out who you are again. I know that that's been a big struggle for me since my divorce and everything, because there's a lot of manipulation there. And I'm relearning who I am, and the ground gets shaken under me, from time to time. And, I'm like, who am I? What am I? What am I supposed to do? What is all this? And so you just kind of fumble through for a while. But every experience is a little bit different, but either way, it can have a big impact on our lives. And so I am going to do the best thing I can and turn it over to Ryan and let him talk about this, because I know his words have comforted me a lot of times. And, he's had some great perspective on, just who I am as a person. And, as I'm feeling promptings in my heart to go certain directions, he helps me to make heads or tails of it sometimes. And it's really helpful. So, Ryan, it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for saying that, Joe. I mean, words can't express my gratitude for you saying that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Because it means a lot. It's interesting. We're all human beings here. We sort of know what it's like to have a view on something and then someone else disagrees with us. And it can be hard to sometimes let that go. As you talked about your ex-boyfriend, who's now your ex, and it's incredibly typical, and not typical in like not necessarily in a bad way, but sort of like that. He had his views on gun control or transgender or whatever it was, all these sorts of things, and he wants you to believe the same things he believes. I mean, that's a pretty common thing. Everyone wants wants other people to believe what they believe. I mean, there's even things called there's something called relativism, where we have this ideal of, well, let other people believe whatever they want to believe. But I get to believe what I want to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But even that falls flat on its face. Very often, if you truly examine people who subscribe to relativism, they will quickly go against anyone's word that is not of the popular belief or of their belief very quickly. So it's hard. It's hard to get away from this desire to want other people, especially our significant others, to believe the same things we believe, even to a point where we're willing to argue with them.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, there are definitely things more important than doing that, right? But our beliefs on reality and what we think is morally correct, or what we think other people are going through, etc., they do shape us and shape who we are and who we become. And so there is a natural desire to help someone by changing their views. So my point of saying all this is, I don't necessarily blame him for being human. I don't know if that's necessarily, obviously you're only sharing a small part of it. You're just giving an example.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, I think that's incredibly normal. And it just makes me realize, like, since the beginning of time, humans are just humans. And finding someone that's going to be the other part of you, right? Like, by that, well, of course, I think you know what I mean by that. Finding someone that's going to be the other part of you, right? Like, because when you get into a relationship, right, when you not just a relationship, but like when you get married or whatever, it's considered like the two become one, right? Your souls become attached, and you live life together, and that's the ideal. That's what's supposed to happen. That's not what always happens, but that's what's supposed to happen, right? And then finding that one person that, even if they don't agree with you on all the things, you guys complement each other. And in fact, the disagreements can be a complement to your full nature, right? And so finding that person is incredibly difficult. Um, and so um, it just made me think about all of that. And that's kind of okay. Um, People are people. We're sinful creatures, and we want other people to be like ourselves. You know, you put anyone in power, what are they going to do? They're going to vote forward. They're going to push forward the things that they believe in, so that other people believe in them. You know, what is politics but trying to force people to believe in what other people believe in, um, or want you to believe in? Even if they don't believe it themselves, they want you to believe it so they can get away with something. So much of humanity is trying to get other people to believe something that we want them to believe. And that's a rather, I think, probably somewhat somewhat okay and somewhat sinful, right? Because there's goodness in that, right? I mean, we're on this show and we talk a lot. I mean, we want to make the best of our lives, and we want to make the best of your life, and we try to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But we can only do that through our own lens, right? And we can be on the show and try to give you perspective, but we're not going to necessarily share this perspective that you have, right? So it's just an interesting thing to be human. Um, and it sounds like I'm lost in the weeds, and that's kind of fair. But my point of saying all of this is, um, I guess when it comes to life, expect that from people. Just expect that. Um, Whoever you find in life, eventually, right? If you ever end up married, expect the same thing from them that you did with your boyfriend, just of recent, as
Mm.
far as trying to get you to be on their same page as what they believe in about politics and laws and so on. That's just part of being human. Now, there are extreme cases where people are way more intense about it,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be very toxic,
Mm-hmm.
and that's definitely something you want to walk away from.
Mm-hmm.
But then even the mild cases where it's not even toxic, it's just them trying to be helpful and in earnest. They're not just trying to get you to be like them. They want you to be you, but they're just trying to help you along, and so they give their perspective and so on. Even in that, you're going to encounter some of this. Hey, take things from my perspective. Take things from my point of view. That's going to be a constant in your life. And the reason I'm saying that is not to say that you've done anything wrong here, but rather to give you a shield in battle, if that makes sense. I'm
Mm.
trying to give you a shield in the battle ahead of you.
Mm.
Um, Not necessarily trying to give you the weapon, but I'm going to give you the shield, because if you have the shield, then you can block away, and you can recognize like, oh, this is an attack, and then just block it, right? And um, you're going to have that in every relationship in your life as soon as it gets to a deeper level, or even if it doesn't even get to a deeper level, actually surface level. Uh, you're going to find these things unless people are incredibly cautious. So just expect those things from people, especially from loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
that they're gonna want to decide for you what they think you should believe in and how you should act, and so on and so forth. Um, and so just yeah, I mean, pay attention. Sometimes people can be right about things, and sometimes they're not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, um, and you're right, Ash. Usually, well, as you said, well, yeah, but usually when someone says, "Look at it from my point of view," they usually share that point of view. Yeah, right. And he doesn't do that, so that's kind of funny. Look at it from my point of view. I think part of that is, well, perhaps he didn't know his full point of view, or he just expects you to know his point of view because of the things he said in the past. I don't know. But regardless, yeah, it is a weird thing. It is a weird thing. So, um, something that I want to do to maybe help you is yeah, you said you're feeling numb, and that's fine. That's okay. That's an okay response and experience. And yeah, as Neon just said, there's always hope in finding someone more accepting of you. Yeah, for sure. Um, um, but it's okay to feel numb. It's okay to feel. It's even okay to feel like, you know what? It's not a big deal. It doesn't affect me emotionally. I thought it would affect me, but it didn't. If there's a difference between, Ash, I don't know if you wanna expound upon this. Um, there's a difference between feeling numb and simply not feeling um an emotion, right? Um, and does that make sense to you, Ash? Does that distinction? I don't. Does that distinction make sense? And can you tell me which you feel more? Is it a state of being numb, or is it a state of just, um, I don't really feel anything? Because like I didn't get an emotion from it, right? There's a difference between numb and I didn't get an emotion from it, right? Like I don't know, I might play a video game and certain events happen in the video game and I'm just like, huh, it didn't heighten my emotion. It didn't bring any emotion out of me. So yeah, whatever, it's fine. Um, and then there's numb, where it's like you recognize that your brain is suppressing the emotion. Um, yeah, it's a mix of both. Okay, okay, yeah. Primarily don't feel anything. Okay, cool. Yeah. And that's okay. Um, feeling numb might not be okay just because it's your brain suppressing an emotion, and you recognize like, okay, um, I need to fix that because that isn't an okay state to live in. But if it's more so that it's just like, for some reason it didn't make me feel an emotion, I think that's totally okay. Obviously it doesn't make you a monster. It doesn't make you weird or anything. I feel like it seemed to you probably that at this point in your relationship, it was like, well, yeah, I guess it should be over. It makes sense, and it was, and there was no remorse there, and I or no no regret, and I think that's good. That's good. I think that's a perfect place to be. In fact, um, of any place to be, I think that's the best place to be.
Mm.
Um, I think that's the best place to be because if a relationship ends and you're happy that it's ended, that means whatever that relationship was probably really bad.
Mm.
And being happy that the a relationship is ended is kind of like a mixed bag to me. Like it's like I don't know, like you're happy that the relationship ended. That feels like that's not quite evil, but it's still weird. Um like
I'm evil.
because you should be if you're happy that a relationship is ended, that means that the relationship went really badly. Which that's fair. But that stinks. And so that's not a good thing. And if you're really sad the relationship ended, well, that kind of makes sense because you value the person, you value the relationship, but it also it's sad and it doesn't feel good. And it's like, well, should it have ended? If it's gonna make you sad, then maybe, it's okay to be sad. But you know, I feel like just the emotion of like, well, it's meh, it's okay. Like it's okay. Um, I barely any emotional registering at all. Then I think that's good. I think that's probably one of the best places to be. Um, and so yeah. I mean that's kind of my view of it, anyways. But if you feel numb, to any degree, you know, I think that when we feel numb, it's because our mind is trying to avoid a pain, right?
Mm.
Our
Mm-hmm.
mind is trying to avoid pain. We don't get numb. Well, we can technically. We generally don't get numb over positive things, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can. We can. That's when we're overstimulated in the brain with so many positive things that our brain just shuts down because it's like, well, we've got too much of something going on and we need to shut certain parts of our emotional cortex, whatever, down. And that's fine. That'll work itself out, generally speaking, as long as you don't just continue trying to do those things. You give it a break. And so when your mind makes things numb, I think it's trying to take a break as well, take a break from pain. And so if you're experiencing numbness and you want to get out of it, I think a really good way to get out of it is, unfortunately, to address the issues in your mind in a safe place. You find a safe place, you know. So like, as in like not in the middle of work, you know. You know, you go to a place where you can be relaxed and you're able to enjoy yourself, right? Maybe like you for like a half an hour or whatever, you do something that's enjoyable, and you're in that safe place, and then you're like, okay, you put everything down, and then you enter into your mind and you just say, okay, so you're numb, and the reason is because you're trying to avoid pain, likely. And so let's talk about the things that make me feel pain. Let's talk about those things and work through them. Because your mind is afraid. It's afraid of going into those places, and it needs to. Sometimes it needs to shut those things down, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to work, or otherwise you wouldn't be able to have fun, right? So the numbness of the mind is a self-defense mechanism that is important, and it's a good thing, but it's not a good thing long term, right? And so whenever we encounter that, we need to allow the numbness to exist for a period of time. And when we find our safe place, then we can go in and address the numbness. I hope that makes sense to everybody. And again, I'm not a therapist, and I think this is better addressed by a therapist, but that's at least my perspective of it. It's okay to experience numbness. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing that our minds can do that, because again, it allows us to get through the day and get through those moments where we need to not let our emotions overtake us. But as soon as you find that place where you're in a peaceful environment, you need to try to solve that numbness and break it down one thing at a time. That's an important thing. And that's, you know, it looks different for everybody, but generally I think that's just talking to yourself about those real issues. Just talking to yourself and allowing yourself to get into that emotional state that starts to hurt, and then talk about it. Journal. Journaling is a fantastic way. I know many people now who use journaling as a way to address themselves and get through things, writing down what's on their mind and why things hurt and why they think things hurt, or etc. And that is a great improvement, and it makes a lot of sense, and it really helps, because then you can read back on it too and just reminisce over, not just reminisce, but like to study it, I guess, right? To look over and to study and study yourself. I think it's a very powerful tool. So journaling is a great way to do it if you're not the kind of person that can just handle everything in their head without journaling. Which, you know, there's so many different kinds of people, and some people use music, believe it or not, and like I know someone who literally sings everything out because that's their most emotionally connected state of their brain, is the emotion is tied to music, and so they sing their thoughts out into being, and that helps them go through the motions of solving these numb ties and things like that, these knots of emotions and conflicts that we have to go through. So whatever it is for you, Ash, that works. If you are feeling any bit numb, feel free to find that safe place, and you know, feel free to remain numb until you find that safe place that, you know, like, okay, this is the place, and then work it there, work through it, and however you want, however you think is beneficial to you. So I can see there's a lot of fun going on in chat. So that's great. But yeah, I guess, you know, for now, I'd say you're in a good place, Ash. You don't have to get into a relationship immediately. Of course, don't let people force you. You can take your time, and if you want to, then do it. I don't, it's up to you. Whenever you feel like you're ready, it's fine. And the thing is, um, also, life isn't about just this one thing. Life isn't just about like your romantic relationships, right? There's so much more to life. And so you don't have to feel don't feel I don't know, what's the word? Forced? Don't feel like you should feel forced into immediately moving forward, or that it even should cross your mind as in like, oh, when am I going to decide to move forward with another relationship? It doesn't even have to, you don't even have to think about it. Um, being single is a blessing too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Either way, whenever you decide, if ever you decide that you want to take up another relationship, go for it. There's so much to be said about maybe what kind of person you should look for in life. I feel like it's a whole nother topic, but um, I think that generally speaking, no people in general aren't taught what kind of people they should be seeking out to find the one that is for them. And that's a weird thing because, like, what kind of study is that? Study of
Mm-hmm.
romance. And it's like, well, that's then that brings up a whole different sorts of different stuff. But specifically, like the study of like what's going to be good for you, and how do you know what that is when you see it? That's something to look into, and maybe that's something to think about if you can on your free time, Ash. What's going to be good for you from another person? What's going to be good for you, and how do you recognize it when you see it? These are good questions. But until then, I think until you break that down a little bit, um, I'd say it's totally fine to not even care whether you have a boyfriend or not. Um, so anyhow, that's my take on all of this. I talked for a little while. I feel like I didn't really have a whole lot to add to your situation, Ash. I think what you're doing is just fine, and I want you to just carry on, and you're awesome. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I got, and I'm just gonna give it over to Joe and see what he's got.
Mm. All right. Thank you, Ryan. And again,
No.
Ash, thank you so much. I forgot to say at the beginning of the show, if you have a topic you'd like us to talk about, you can go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and fill out the form, and we'd be happy to do your topic. I did post it in the chat, the link, so you can scroll up and get there. But anyway, Ash, I'm sorry that all this has happened. It's
Hmm.
not easy to go through. It's not easy to go through a breakup. It's not easy to go through a relationship when you feel the way you felt, like you were pressured to, acquiesce to this person's point of view. And then you didn't even learn what the point of view was. And that's
Yeah.
confusing. And,
Mm-hmm.
there's just, there are a lot of things in here that make me, in a way, a sense that maybe there's a bit of relief for you to no longer
Mm-hmm.
be in this relationship, and that's totally normal.
Mm-hmm.
um it's totally normal to feel brokenhearted because of the connection that's no longer there. And it can be a really weird mixed bag of feelings. I can tell you, I can relate with the numbness feeling. I can relate with the emptiness feeling, the just like I don't feel any emotion. It's just empty. And I can feel wrong because, we are emotional creatures and we have different emotions that run through us. And then so everything just kind of loses its flavor and nothing is good and nothing is bad. It's just everything just is. And why is it here in the first place anyway? Like, what the heck is the point of all of this? Like, all these things go through our minds when we're faced with something this it's a big deal, right? I mean, you've been with this person for 2 years. You had plans to marry this person. You had thought about all these avenues about spending the rest of your life with them, going to school, going to college with them, all of that. And now now it's not there. And with that incident can come a huge just roller coaster ride. And so don't be surprised if you go from this numbness to feelings of anger, to feelings of regret, to feelings of sadness and loss, to feelings of excitement, because what can the future hold now that I'm no longer connected to this person? Who knows? And there's a great song by Static P called Life Might Take Us, and I love that song. It's one of my favorites. And he talks about embracing these changes, embracing when something changes. It's a new path that we get to walk on, and it can be exciting and it can be scary and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of times, when we can get built up in our heads this idea of how the relationship was, and then we miss it, and then we feel sad, and maybe we feel lonely because we don't get to talk to this person like we talk to him all the time, and now we're not talking to him anymore. And there's a feeling of loss that can set in, and it can just be a huge roller coaster of emotion for a while. And just I want to let you know that that's normal, and it's okay. All the feelings that you're going to feel as a result of this, they're valid. They're you. They're part of you. They're things that you experience that are completely natural and normal. And maybe it won't be a wild ride of emotion. I mean, mine was, but I was in a relationship with my ex for 20 years, over 20 years. And, so that's a long time to have this connection. We've got 2 kids together, and so our connection is ongoing because we have children. And, but it was fun. Ryan was talking, I think it was Ryan was talking about, like, not feeling joyful. And I'm like, I feel joyful.
Yeah. I mean, when for sure, when you're in a bad relationship, for sure, it feels like such relief when you get out of it. I've been there.
Yep. Absolutely. And it's crazy. So I'm glad it happened now, before you guys were legally bound to each other, or before you had children together, and because all of those different things make the separation a lot more complicated. But it's still doable, and sometimes it's necessary. And it's okay. So I'm gonna go right along with Ryan and say you're completely on the right track. It's good to spend some time alone. It's good to not be thinking, oh, I need to get into a relationship now. I know people that, once a relationship ends, they feel like they have to be in another one, or else they're missing some part of their life. And I'm like, no, like, being single can be wonderful. You can pursue you. You can pursue what you enjoy, what you're built to do. I believe we're all here for a purpose, but I also have trouble discovering what that purpose is a lot of times, and I think we all do. You can date yourself. I date myself by talking about being with this girl for 20 years. That certainly dates me.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, you absolutely can. And that's part of the things that I've been doing. I've been working with a therapist. If you have this numb feeling for an ongoing period of time, I would definitely speak with a therapist or a counselor, because there's probably something going on that needs to be unpacked in your brain, and a professional would definitely be able to help you with that. I remember just the extreme depression as things were ramping up to me filing for divorce, and I had started seeing a therapist, and there was a lot of numbness. There was a lot of a devoid of feelings type of state that I was in. And, you know, she had some tremendous recommendations. One of my first assignments with my therapist was to deliberately make myself angry and then express it through some kind of physical activity. Because what had happened, she discovered very early in my therapist relationship with her was that the depression was brought about because of frozen anger. Because I was angry, there were things that made me angry, but I felt like that anger was not legitimate and it needed to just be squashed. And that is not a healthy situation. When you don't express your anger, then what happens is it gets shoved down and bottled up, and then it freezes and becomes depression. And that's a huge cause of depression. And when you're depressed, things just don't, everything is bleak. Nothing tastes good. Nothing feels good. Nothing sounds good. Everything just is blah. And, it can be really, really disheartening and really, really discouraging. And I'm not saying that you're definitely going to go through that. I don't know. Maybe this will just be for a short period of time, and you'll move on to other emotions. But I do want to emphasize that now you're free. And that is an okay thing. In a lot of ways, it's a blessing. Like Ryan was talking about, being single is a blessing. Being in a relationship is a blessing. Being single is a curse. Being in a relationship is a curse. All of this stuff, right? And I remember, I'll never forget my buddy's wedding. I was the best man in my friend's wedding, and there was this big argument that happened at the reception. Big issue. And the bride's father was he said off the cuff to me, he was just kind of like, oh man, they just got married today and they're already having marriage problems. And I was like, I guarantee you they're going to have marriage problems, because married people have married problems. Single people have single problems. Whatever state we're in, we're going to encounter problems in that state. So the point is figuring out how to get through them and get to the other side. And sometimes that can be really confusing. So this is where having friends comes in. This is where if you're really, really struggling to find a therapist, they can definitely help. And there's a lot of things. I'm just looking at the chat. Freedom for the ash. Yes. It's an okay thing. And you can discover what you're all about. And I'm not saying you're going to discover it tomorrow or overnight. I'm still figuring out mine. I'm still discovering things. I'm still learning, okay, what are things that make me tick? What are things that, whatever. And I think it's just going to be an ongoing thing for the rest of our lives to discover ourselves and to discover more about ourselves. And it's so weird, because things I used to be passionate about, I'm not passionate about anymore. And things that I was passionate about before, I was passionate about these other things. Maybe they get reignited, and who knows, like all kinds of things happen. And it's just such an amazing journey. And I'll tell you, Ash, going through this period of time, it will add to the vibrant nature of your life. Same friend who I was just talking about that I talked to his father-in-law at the wedding, he also is divorced. He and I went through our divorces like at the same time, which is crazy. But I was just talking to him last night on the phone, And we were talking about, man, we've been through some stuff together. We've known each other for a long time, and, we've seen a whole kinds of ups and downs. And we're like, yeah, man, it's been crazy. And I'm like, he's like, other people, they haven't had the same experiences. I'm like, that's true, but we haven't had the same experiences as them either. And I can tell you this, though, we've hit some really, really lows together. We've hit some highs together, and all of that just adds to the vibrant piece of art that we call our lives. All of it. The drama, the excitement, the discouragement. If you were watching a movie and all you did was you watched a guy go to work, come home, and watch TV, eat some TV dinners, whatever, get some takeout, whatever, get a DoorDash and, sitting on his couch and watching TV, that wouldn't be a very interesting movie. Or if a guy goes, or a gal, or whoever, the main character or supporting character, whoever, if there isn't some kind of struggle, it's not very interesting to watch. So a lot of times I'll have to take a step back from my situation and be like, okay, this is really hard. This is really, painful, whatever. And I'm like, okay, this is adding to the drama of the movie of my life. It all just adds to it. Even as painful as it can be. And another thing it does is it equips us to help others in those areas. I'll never forget when we were doing pre-marriage counseling before we got married, right? And the people that did this pre-marriage class counseling thing, whatever, there were like 4 of us preparing to get married. And then there was this couple that had been married for a handful of years. And they just talked about, oh, everything's so great and it's sunshiny and it's wonderful. And we've got 3 kids and, oh, we just love each other so much. And it's just been such a great time. And da 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 da. I'm like, you are the worst marriage counselor ever.
If you're going to help me.
How are you going to ever counsel somebody through a marriage problem if you haven't had any marriage problems? How are you ever going to teach people what to look out for if you've never, what you're telling? Now, I think they were probably exaggerating. Like, everybody's marriage has difficulties and arguments and, sticky spots and everything like that. But, what they portrayed was just this super duper happy, lovey couple that just, oh, we were just made for each other and we're soulmates and blah, 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 and all this happy, happy, joy, joy stuff. And you know what? There's a place for that. But when you're preparing people to get married, you also need to let them know the landscape. That it's not all happy, go wonderful all the time. Right? Any relationship, you're gonna have struggles, you're gonna have issues, you're gonna have arguments, you're gonna have differing points of view, you're gonna have people trying to manipulate. Maybe there's all kinds of different things that you run into when you're dealing with personal, romantic relationships and stuff like that. So now that you are no longer there, you're free. You're free to be you. You don't have to apologize. You don't have to try and, see, well, if I disagree with this person, if I disagree with them now, are they still going to like me tomorrow? Or, or what kind of can of worms am I going to open up if I do this? Or if I say this? Or if I post this on social media or whatever, right? There's all kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff. And you don't have to worry about that. Because it doesn't matter. And you can be you. And you can discover who you are. And I will say, I do remember hearing some of your, I believe it was original music on SoundCloud years ago. I do remember that. I think I remember. I'm pretty sure I remember. That was you. But so maybe that's something you could get into. Maybe you could, who knows? Sky's the limit. Try stuff, get into stuff, get involved with stuff. See what the world has to offer, because there's a lot of beauty. And I'm not saying that there isn't beauty with relationships, because there is. I see lots of people who have successful relationships. And hey, great. That's great for them. You know, that's fine. There can be beauty there too. And that's one of the things my therapist keeps trying to drill into my head, is like, you need to fix your view on marriage and romantic relationships and all that stuff. I'm like, let's take it one step at a time. And she sends me videos from the Gottman Institute about, like making marriage work and, all this stuff. And she sends me like, oh, you should watch this series on Netflix because this is what a successful marriage looks like. And I'm like, can I just puke into a bucket? Like, I started, she's like, okay, this is your assignment. Watch this video. This like 45-minute video about making marriage work. And I watched like the first 45 seconds of it. And I was like, nope. Went back to my next session. She's like, how was that video? I was like, I watched like the very beginning of it and I turned it off because I'm like, nope, it's not time. It's not time to do this. It's not time to figure this out. There's a lot of other stuff I need to figure out. I need to figure out how to make myself mentally strong again because I had been, manipulated so much that now I'm susceptible and I don't know what kind of mind games people play. So I got to be aware of that. And I got to be aware of how I respond. And I got to be aware of, okay, like psychologically, what's this doing to me? And how can I avoid that trap again? You know what I mean? So I'm not interested right now in making marriage work.
I think there's a really good analogy I just thought of.
Yeah.
Is you need to puke the bad stuff out of you before you consume more good stuff. Because if you just consume more good stuff, all that good stuff is going to come right out of you when that bad stuff comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to finish puking before you start eating.
Yeah. Did you ever do that?
No, but I think I can imagine
it. Did you ever puke while you're still eating?
Yeah.
We're getting kind of disgusting here. But anyway, I've talked for a while. Ash, I love you. You are so amazing. And it's so amazing to, see you here as often as you're here. You're such just a wonderful person. And, when we've DM'd back and forth on Discord, it's just been a tremendously wonderful experience. And so you are so valuable. Mm-hmm. And I hope that you can remember that, because I know that when breakups occur, we can question our own value. We can question our own, this person, it didn't work out with this person. Am I even worthwhile? Am I even worth it? And it can be a real sticking point in our minds. So anyway, Ash, I love you. You're awesome. Thank you for the topic. And I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan and see if he's got anything else to say. So, Ryan?
Sure, just a little bit. I second, Joe, what you just said. By the way, Joe, that was fantastic. I think you covered a lot of really good points. And
thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't even fly off the handle.
Nah, you're good, man. I try harder next time, Ash, if you want Joe to fly off the handle. No, sorry, anyways. I want to second what Joe was just saying. Ash, you're a awesome, wonderful, and lovely person, and it's great to have you on Don't Worry Wednesday, and it's also nice to have you in personal chats. When I get to talk with you, you're a fantastic person. And Joe was just talking about, being worthy, and I just thought about, was it worth your time to be in that relationship? And the answer should be yes. And the answer should always be yes, no matter how troubling things have been. There are cases where you might be like, well, it'd be better if I avoided all of that. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's fair, but you can't go back and do that. So make it worth it. And so that's sort of all you can do. Because otherwise it's a waste, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason to have a waste when you could make something worth it. And so I think it's important to, at some point, if you haven't already, think about the relationship you had and find those things that makes that relationship worth the time that you put into it, and the love and the effort. One thing I can probably say immediately is it likely increased your ability to love, increased your loving nature, because you were in an environment where that was the sole focus. And then you did a good job at it, and you learned along the way, and you probably are much better at loving now. Also, obviously, there were a lot of things. You guys support each other in hard times, and I know that's especially true for. I believe that's especially true for you. I know that some of the things you shared with us before, your brother, or sorry, your brother, your your boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, helped you through, or at least was there to um, give you good spirits while you were going through it, right? And that's important, to be that um, to be that emotional backboard and stuff. So it's good to spend a little time, if you haven't already, um, recognizing the goodness that was there, and not just point at the badness and just say, oh, that was bad, that was bad, that was bad, I don't like this, and that justifies my breakup. um that's all. That's fair, that's true. I think there's definitely bad things that can justify a breakup for sure.
Mm.
um but I don't want you to, I don't want for you, and I don't think this is your nature anyways, Ash, but I don't want for you to feel like you need to justify it and get stuck on that page,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
never get to the page where you're looking at it and going, you know what, there are good things. um I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, I know, Joe, for example, in your case, right? You had kids. It's a
Mm.
wonderful, beautiful thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can be thankful for that. And it's such a huge blessing. And so we all need to take time whenever we go through something and there's a relationship that has an end. Yes, there's definitely time that's needed for perhaps justification, or recognizing the bad and puking that out.
Mm.
And I think that's good. And we need to expel that waste from our body so that we can be healthy. It's literally true. It
Mm.
is both physically and emotionally and logically and mentally and spiritually everything true. We need, because I mean, it's been known for thousands and thousands of years. It's been written in books of wisdom that that this evil can come from within us, and that evil, what we pour out of our mouths, is also what we ingest back into ourselves. So there's a time for expelling, but there's also a time for speaking out the good things, the fruits from our labors, the fruits from our hard work, and speaking those out so that we can hear ourselves say it and ingest those and become a kind of person that can rejoice over beauty and not get repulsed at beauty, right? And that's all something we all have to work at in all sorts of different environments. You know, for some of us, it is romance, and for some of us, it's other things, like people who have high intense emotions. For me, that was a struggle, for a long time, because people who have really intense emotions, like, that's not my personality at all. And people who have really intense emotions, for me, that's like, well, not for me anymore, but back, couple, I don't know, quite a few years ago, that was something I had to work through. Like, I
Mm.
looked at those people like they were like, there was something wrong with these people, and let's not engage, and let's try to avoid, and let's, like, to some degree, right? I was still kind and nice, but there was an inner battle that I had to deal with there, and so I had to recognize the good in that before I could accept it, right? And I also had to recognize where I was harmed in that, right? My dad, for example, when I was very little, he had powerful emotions, and they were anger, and it resulted in terrible things. Um, so I had to learn the difference between good and bad in that scenario and work through it. So that's what I'm encouraging you to do, Ash, if you haven't already done it, which you might have. So thank you so much, Ash, for giving us the topic. One last thing I want to say is I had a breakup also where Ash, you talked about when you called your mom and made you cry, but before that you didn't cry and everything was fine. I had the same thing happen to me. I had a relationship for 4.5 years, I think it was, and when the relationship ended, I was shocked, but then I was like, okay, and I was fine that whole day, and the whole next day it was fine. I was just like, okay, that happened. I'm gonna try my best to get things together, figure out if I can get them back or not, and whatever. And then my brother called me and I started talking to him. And as soon as I started talking about my breakup with him, all of a sudden I just cried and I was like, I didn't cry until just now. What the heck happened? Why did that happen? And it's weird because it's like I wasn't in an emotional state of disrepair until all of a sudden I talked to my brother and all of a sudden all these emotions came out of me. It was weird. So Ash, I relate. I relate. That's kind of how it's exactly how I felt. Um, and I think part of that is just we have someone. It's not even that the emotions are necessarily hidden, but it's not like they were hidden from ourselves or anything. It was just like we encountered a person that pulled out something from us. Um, and it was a good thing because it allows us to find an environment where we can just pour ourselves out and then get over it. And it's really awesome. I mean, I'm happy that your mom was there for you in that circumstance. Um, and I'm happy my brother was there for me and mine. So I don't know. It's a weird thing, Ash. I can't quite describe it. I think that I'd have to really think more hard on why that happens. But it doesn't feel out of place or that we were lying to ourselves that we didn't feel emotional about it. I think it's just a natural thing that happens. So I just wanted to end with that, I suppose, and that relatability. Um, so yeah, thank you so much. Um, oh, your mom was making cat puns. All good, Ash. Um, all good. Well, thank you so much, Ash, for the fantastic topic, and I hope we did it justice. And yeah, that's what I've got, and I'm gonna give it back over to the host.
Perfect.
Love
I'm
you,
the
Ash.
host.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. There's one thing I want to address before I let this go, and that is, it says you realize you had different views that just aren't compatible. And I do want to say one thing about relationships. None of us are compatible, and all of us are compatible.
There you go.
We get so hung up on compatibility in relationships, but you're never going to be fully agreeing on everything. You're never going to be fully compatible,
And you don't want to be.
Exactly, because then it's boring, right? And so part of the sometimes some of the excitement in a relationship is those sticking points of disagreement where you can, but if you can still love each other while you disagree, then that, that is key, right?
Yeah,
Can you still decide to love this person?
The nature of unconditional love is such a profound thing that is just, if you have that in your relationship, it'll work, basically. And if your relationship doesn't have that, you might want to get out. I'm sorry to say that, but it's kind of like the make it or break it. That's the equation. Is there unconditional love? Is there a condition in which that person's love for you stops? If you know what that condition is, it's like, then that's probably not the person you want to be with, because you're going to hit that condition. If you're walking on eggshells, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
Eggshells aren't fun to walk on, that's for sure.
Mm-mm.
So anyway, Ash, thank you so much for the topic. Thank you for sharing a part of your life, and I'm sorry for the tension and stress this might cause, and some of the emotional upheaval that might happen as a result. But You're going to be okay. And I'm glad that you are feeling optimistic about the situation, even though, there's going to be times when you cry. There's going to be times when you feel numb. There's going to be times when, you're just going to go through this myriad of feelings, and that's okay. And it's normal. And, keep us
Mm-hmm.
posted. We'd love to talk with you more, as always. And,
Mm-hmm.
like, if you come up against another sticking point or another challenge, we would love to see what we can do or say that could help. So anyway, thank you so much, Ash. You are awesome. And with that, we
Mm-hmm.
will move on to our next topic. Next topic, we have another urgent one. This one comes from Science Rocks, and they will not be present during the stream, but I know
Mm.
we definitely wanted to cover it. And yeah, because this is urgent time zones and stuff. I think it's Thursday for them. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, they have a hard time making it two of these for sure.
mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, but there's an urgent topic here from Science Rocks. It's called Coworker Crush. And I'm going to get it up here for you. I think. And yes, it's Thursday for you too, Hatsu. You
Yeah, you
betcha.
guys in your future.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there one day.
We'll get to the future.
We'll get there one. Yeah, we'll get to Thursday.
Yep,
Just
it'll
you
be.
wait.
Yeah, exactly. So
And then when
again,
we arrive, the party comes. No, okay, anyways.
yep. Again, if you want to submit a topic, you can do so at don'tworrywednesday.com. Click the submit a topic button and fill out the form, and then just let us know you're human and all that kind of stuff. Because if you don't say you're human, we don't get the topic. So make sure,
Yes.
yes, you're human. It's okay. But anyway, all right, I'm going to get this topic up on the screen. This is called Coworker Crush, and it comes from Science Rocks. And it reads as follows: My coworker crush is now going on a date with my coworker friend. I was too slow again. I'm absolutely devastated. She was so kind and caring towards me and showed me the kind of love I haven't gotten from anyone else. But I was too scared to make a move. And now the unexpected has occurred, and I'm feeling so numb and sick. Not to mention, I hate to say it, but this is the third time I've self harmed at this job. I made a mistake by inaction yet again. How am I supposed to face either of them when both of them, my sweet, kind hearted crush especially, used to be such sources of happiness at my job? But now they've suddenly turned into the biggest source of pain with just a single sentence. How am I supposed to go on like this? I want to support them and be selfless and happy for them, and in a way I am, but I can't help this disgusted feeling of betrayal that I feel. I don't know how I'm going to face them at work. And this is from Science Rocks. Thank you so much, Science Rocks, for this topic. And hopefully, we're able to talk about it and do it justice. This was a controversial topic a little bit in the Help Me section of the Static P Discord. We had interesting conversation, but yeah, I am really interested to see Ryan's take on this. Because yeah, this is definitely one of those incidents where it's like, hey, I've got my heart set on somebody. I've become emotionally attached. Even if I haven't made a move yet, my emotions have still attached myself to them. And now I see
Hmm.
them with another person, and this other person is my friend, and we work together, all of us, and I can't avoid them. And
Mm-hmm.
now it can be a heart wrenching, soul gripping time that just it can bring up a lot of pain. So, Ryan, I don't know if you've necessarily been through this. I imagine you have. You've got some
Yeah,
tremendous life experience.
sure.
So I'm gonna just get out of your way and let you have it. So,
I'll
Ryan, I'm
give it
gonna
the
let
best
you
I've
have
got.
it. I'm letting you have it, man.
Let me have it, man.
All right.
Follow the spatula. No. um,
Awesome.
yeah. No, um, this is definitely, I understand your pain, and it's hard. It's just hard. You're gonna go to work and you're feeling like, yeah, you feel sick. The amount of emotional, it, the amount of emotional, like, just, I don't know the word for it, but it's like you see reality and your emotions want to reject that reality at all cost. At all cost.
Mm.
And that includes your body. Like like you physically feel sick when you encounter this scenario where you go to your work and you see your friends, which are sources of your joy and your happiness, and all of a sudden, and it's not like they betrayed you, because they're still good people and no one's betrayed you, and yet because of your desires for a particular person, um, it it spins itself into this web, that just feels horrible.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And and part of what makes it even more horrible is that no one's even done necessarily anything evil or wrong, and so there's no justifying anything of like, well, they did this, and then now I can feel better about myself. You can't even do that. Not that you should in the first place, but because that's not really that healthy. But you can't do that in this scenario. It's like, well, they're still my friend, and there's this lady is still a very kind person, but now it just hurts. So, what do you do? I think there's a lot of important things here, and unfortunately, science, you've been with us a long time, and I think, in fact, one of the first times I was ever on Don't Worry Wednesday, if I remember correctly, we addressed one of your topics. I could be wrong about that, but you can say I think that's true. But anyhow, so anyways, Science Rocks, you've been with us for a really long time. And you've been
Mm-hmm.
awesome. And I
Mm-hmm.
miss seeing you in the chat, and I wish that we could have you more. I recognize that the time that we do this is late for you, but I just want to say that you're an awesome person. Um, and unfortunately, in this scenario, I think you already know a lot of sort of like you. There's no point in necessarily looking at the perspective of the girl, right? The girl's perspective is certainly unknown to us, but also not like she did anything to harm you. And your friend, it's true there too. Even if he knew you liked the girl, right? Um, it's not wrong for him to want to go and ask someone out, right? Like, we shouldn't be like, oh, you're my best friend, you're not allowed to ask this girl out. It's like, that's not fair. That's not. It's not that it's just not fair. It's just wrong. It's like, that's using your friend status to limit someone else's opportunities in life, and like, that's not okay. So it's like, in this scenario, like I said, it doesn't seem to me that they've done anything wrong, right?
Mm.
Anything of poor judgment or poor value, whatever. And so you just have what you have, and that's unfortunately yourself. You're left with yourself and these feelings,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so here we are, this is you, and you're awesome. Don't doubt that, because it's true. I don't know if you believe that, but I certainly know that it's true. Whether you believe it or not, Science, you've always been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there have been so many times you've put helpful things in the chat in the past, and that was years ago at this point. Um, and I just I think you're so awesome, and I always got excited whenever I got to see you, man.
Mm.
And you have a great attitude and a great personality, and you're just awesome. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so here we are. The only person you're stuck with right now in this whole ordeal is you. It's you against yourself. And so you're gonna beat yourself up because you feel like you sat there and you didn't take action. And so now you beat yourself up because this isn't a mistake that you've made once, it's a mistake you've made multiple times, right? Um, and so now you're here beating yourself up and you're like, oh, I'm not awesome. See, I make these stupid mistakes where I don't act in time to get my reward or whatever. Well, I wanna stop you from thinking that by attacking one of the roots of that problem. Um, I, I'm gonna read this from Nyansai so you don't hate me when I say it. You are not entitled to your crush. And you know those are loving words. They are. You are not entitled to your crush. So
It's
the fact
truthful
that you
words too.
hurt, truthful words, yeah, truthful, loving words. It's true. You aren't entitled to your crush, and so one of the reasons you are upset is because you want this girl in your life in a special way, and there's nothing wrong with wanting that. But because when you see something good, of course, it's natural that you want it in your life, right? Of course, that's fine. But when you get the feeling of you almost had her, or she could have been yours, right? I don't necessarily think that that's a good way to think about it, because yeah, you're not entitled to the person you love, um, and a person is a free creature of their own will and so on. So, I mean, first of all, you don't even know if they would have said yes. Maybe they would have, but you don't know because you're not there, and that's okay. Second of all, um, if you like this person, that's okay to like. It's okay to like someone. That's normal. It's okay to want someone to be a part of your life. That's normal. But um, there's a difference when it comes to love. And we've talked about this many times in the channel before. What is love? And I think the simplest and easiest way to define it, um, in these terms are to desire the best for another and to be willing to do what it takes to get them that, right? As far as you can, right? Um, as far as obviously not going. You don't want it to be like the ends justifies the means. You don't want to be like doing evil things because you love someone. That's definitely not loving anymore, because then you're not loving anything else. That's bad.
What if I'm really good at evil things?
Well, fantastic for you, but stop it.
There's a reason I'm in the confessional all the time. Anyway.
Yeah, that's great. So if we desire the best for someone, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that that's us with them. And to desire the best for someone a lot of times means you let go of yourself. You make a sacrifice of yourself for that person. In a working, healthy relationship, especially that of a romantic kind, it's often that you're going to have to make sacrifices of self to make that relationship better and work and good. And sacrificing yourself can mean all sorts of different things, but you have to be willing to let go of what you want for the good of another person. And what you want is this girl to be with you. And I know it sounds elementary, but it still needs to be repeated in our current day. Everyone needs to hear these things because we're at war most of the time with ourselves, and we don't recognize it. Because we don't recognize where we aren't. Sometimes we don't recognize where we're blind, of course, or where we can't see where we're getting things wrong. And sometimes we just don't notice the terrible decisions we're making because we're going after emotions or logic, but without moral merit, right? So we have to at times go back to the basics and recognize, okay, I'm going to be selfless, or rather not selfish. Selfless, you don't necessarily want to be that either. It's called, selfless isn't a virtue, and selfishness isn't a virtue either. It's charity and generosity. That's a virtue, right? So anyways, if I'm going to be loving, I have to recognize that it's not about me and my emotions. It's about what's best for that other individual because I love them. It's also about what's best for me because I love myself. And one of the problems with that is you don't always know what's best for you. But even outside of that, your emotions are often wrong about what's best for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Your emotions, yeah, your emotions are not a guide to figuring out what's best for you. They are information that you can use to figure out what's best for you, but they certainly are not your guide.
Mm-hmm.
They, you don't just follow. I hate the line "follow your heart," you know, because your heart can be wrong. Your heart can be
Mm-hmm.
selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Many people's hearts are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's okay that you felt this way, but it isn't okay that you go on feeling this way, right? And I say it's not okay because I don't want that for you, and you don't want that for you. I'm not saying that it's morally wrong for you to feel the way that you feel. I'm just saying it's it would be an injustice to yourself. It would be awful that we don't move on from this point, right? And so I would encourage you to recognize, like, okay, I know that I don't necessarily know that it's best for her to be with me. And I know that these are just emotions that make me feel like, oh, I really wanted her. I really, really wanted her. But she's not an object for me to have. She's a human
Mm-hmm.
being and she gets to make her own choices. And I want that part of her intact, right? I want her to be able to make choices, even if it's against me, because
Mm-hmm.
that is beautiful. And I love that nature of her. That's why your love for a human being will always supersede, or sorry, not supersede, but will always exceed. There we go. Your love for a human being, the nature of your love for a human being will always exceed the nature of a love for an object. Because the love for an object does not require unconditional love. The love for an object does not require that you recognize its will and love that it has will, a will of its own, right? A nature unto itself that can decide what it wants to do, right? Your love for an object is always going to be weaker than your love for a human being. And so and also your love for an animal requires far less from you than your love for a human being, right? We can all recognize that's true. Your love for a human being is going to require much more of you and your sanity and your strength than your love for an animal or an object. It just is going to require so much more of you, right? And so you want them to keep those beautiful things intact. So to and I know science, you already know all of this, right? So to have this fantasy where you force them to be with you would sicken you. It
Mm-hmm.
would sicken you would not be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
That fantasy world is not what you want. You wanted them to choose you.
Mm.
But the reality is, for whatever circumstantial reasons, that didn't happen. That has to be okay with you because you love them and you love their nature. So the first thing you need to do is you need to separate that out from this equation because what you're dealing with is a multi-part equation. That's why this is hard. That's why it hurts. So there's many different facets to this, and one of them is your emotional attachment to the idea that you could have her.
Mm-hmm.
You need to remove that emotional attachment from that idea first. And so I'm trying to work you through that and just pluck that out and say, no, you didn't want that. You didn't. So cool, we can drop that. You don't want that world where it's your fantasy. You don't want that world. You want reality. And so reality is she's not yours. And that has to be okay because you love her, right? Otherwise, you don't love her and you just love the idea of her making you happy.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then That's okay. I've been there before, my friend. And what you need to do at that point is talk to yourself and start to recognize that you don't love yourself. And I know that seems like a whole, like, where did you get to that page? Trust me, you follow all the lines. They go back there. If you're in a position where you wanted that other person to make you happy, and that's why you wanted them, and that's why your emotions were so pulled towards this person. You so wanted them because they made you feel good. And that's a really hard place to be, by the way. I know what that place is like, to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sorry if you're there. And obviously, you pointed to you causing self-harm. So if this is where you're at, that's okay. This is a place where you can build from. I can tell you what I did in my moment. I recognized that there was a problem. And so I went in front of the mirror, and I stood in front of the mirror, and it was dark. There was basically a candle. There was a candle in the mirror. Sorry, a candlelight in the bathroom, and I was staring into the mirror in dark candlelight, basically. And I closed the door behind me. I was just in a dark bathroom. I stood in the mirror, and I was just like, let's talk this out. I just stared at my face. And I started talking to myself in my head, and I said, okay, what's wrong, Ryan? And I'm like, I knew. I sort of just, I knew. I was like, if you feel like you have to have other people make you happy, that's a problem. And it's because you don't believe that you can make yourself happy. And because you haven't been making yourself happy. And because in here, this space is not a healthy space, and it's not a happy space, and it's not a peaceful space, right? And there was a lot of talking that I had to do with myself. And I don't know what that talking is going to be like for you if you decide to do this method. But I stood in that mirror and I talked to myself until I came up with a game plan to get out. A game plan. As in, I'm like, okay, these are the steps I'm going to take. These are the actions I'm going to do. And we're going to get on them immediately as soon as I leave the bathroom. And I stood there and I talked to myself. And then I left the bathroom after probably about, I don't know how long it was. It's probably like an hour and a half, maybe.
I was thinking
All right?
4 days.
Yeah. Fair enough. And there was some pacing that I did before this or after this. I don't remember, right? No, it definitely wasn't after, but it was before. I think I did some pacing, and then I went into the bathroom. I stood in the mirror, and I stared at myself, and I talked to myself. Not out loud, just in my head. But I suppose you can talk out loud if that is more emotionally interactive with you than talk to yourself out loud, because that's going to work for some people. But anyhow, yeah, I left the bathroom, and what I did immediately as I left the bathroom is I went to the kitchen. I did the dishes for my family. And
I like
then,
dishes.
yeah,
My favorite chore.
My favorite store?
Chore.
Is that what you said? Oh, chore. Dishes is my favorite store. It's like, that would be a cool store. They probably got a lot of like porcelain and clay and cool stuff. Yeah, that sounds great. I want to go to that store. But anyhow, that was my venture through this. Now, I'm not going to say it's the same for you. I'm going to recommend it just because it worked for me, but I'm not going to say it's going to work for you. My point is, if you're dealing with with self-harm, right? And you're dealing with this emotion getting the best of you about another human being and their choices to not choose you, but to choose someone else, even if you were late, that's fine. You being late to it, I don't think that's a big part of this. I think it's an excuse. And I'm sorry, I'm I'm sorry, but Science Rocks, I don't want to assume that that's true, but it could be true, rather. it could be true that you're using that as an excuse to avoid solving a deeper problem, or your brain is not, it doesn't want to notice the deeper problem, and it wants to just say, oh, it's because I was late. It's because I didn't ask her first. Well, I don't know. To me, if I said that to myself in your circumstance, I would know for me that that wouldn't be true. But that's because I don't have this kind of scenario or issue that you're having. So I'm not going to put myself in your place because I don't know everything that you're going through. So my point is, it sounds like it could be an excuse. I'm not saying it is. It sounds like it could be an excuse on top of a bigger problem to avoid a bigger problem, if that makes sense. And so I'm going to give you the recommendation to look into that into yourself to see, is there something much deeper, and that's sort of an excuse to not look deeper? Or is it not? And is there something really there to that? And I want you to explore that yourself, because only you can, and I definitely can't. So I don't want to assume that you're making excuses. I'm just putting it out there as a what if and an in case, sort of, like, just in case. Take a look into that. So yeah, I think there's a lot more we can talk about here, but I'm gonna stop for now. I'm gonna give it over to Joe. I know I've talked for a long time on that. And so sorry for taking so long to get all those points out. But Science, I care a lot about you. I hope you're doing awesome outside of this, and that things are going well, you know. And I hope that you can get through this quickly, because I know that pain, and it sucks so much when you go into your job and you just have that heart crushing feeling. It's horrible. And it's debilitating. It is debilitating. It makes you feel sick and not want to work, and it's just horrible. So I sincerely hope that you can get through this quickly. But yeah, I'm gonna give it over to Joe.
That might have been your biggest mistake so far, is to give this over to me.
Your biggest mistake is giving it over to me.
And it will all become clear. I may be fired from DWW after this topic. We're going to find out. Science. I love
You're fired. No, just kidding. Don't you dare say his name. Only I can say his name.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Science, I love you. And I know where you're at. I've been there before. I've been there multiple times. And maybe not workplace, but friends with both. Somebody that I really liked. I remember one girl that I really liked, and I happened to be with a different girlfriend at the time. I was dating another person, and I actually recommended that her and this friend of mine date, and now they're married. That was an interesting thing, because I really liked this girl. I really had a huge crush on her in high school, like all throughout high school. And, you know, it seemed like maybe she liked me too at some point in time, but she always had a boyfriend. And when she didn't have a boyfriend, I had a girlfriend, and blah, 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 whatever. Who knows? You know, our lives aren't over. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm divorced now. I don't know if they're still married. Who knows? You never know. You never know what's going to happen. Let me tell you a little bit of experience. So I don't want to do anything to get your hopes up right now, because one of the best things you can do right now is detach this emotional attachment that you've built to this person. I've been there so many times where I've been emotionally attached to this person, to a person. And like, I gotta be talking to them, or I gotta be in their presence, or I gotta be around them all the time. And if I'm not, I'm just empty and I got to be there. And it's like this person fulfills this part that I'm not fulfilling for myself. And I love what Ryan talked about because, you know, when we put that much emphasis on another person, it kind of shows that we don't love ourselves. At least not enough to be complete without them. And you know what's crazy? That emotional attachment that we have, that strong feeling that we have towards another person, it's very unattractive to that other person.
That's true.
The things we do in those scenarios when we are emotionally infatuated or whatever, like we're emotionally sinking, you know, like stuck on this person, the things we do are not attractive. It kind of ends up like we're chasing them. And what's the natural instinct when somebody's chasing you? You run away.
Run away.
I've had that happen before too. I've had one time in my entire life, I've had a person that was obsessed with me. One time. And it wasn't attractive to me to know that. Now, she was a great looking girl. She was a wonderful person. But the fact that I knew she was like obsessed with me made her unattractive to me. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing for all of us, right? When we get into that chase mode, we're not very attractive. So the best thing you can do for you right now is detach. How do you do that? Well, you probably got to avoid as much contact as possible. Now, you work with this person, so it's tough. You work with her, the person she's going out on a date with. And Ash said it so great in the beginning before Ash left. What did she say? Oh, a little thing for this topic. Just because they're going on a date doesn't mean they'll actually get together. And that's very true. Just because they go on 20 dates doesn't mean they're going to end up together. Just because, even, you know, they might get a steady relationship going on. They might get engaged. That doesn't, who knows? That doesn't mean they're going to end up together. I remember I asked this girl out. You know, I was like, I met her, you know, like we were going to college, you know, and stuff. And I got like, I was so excited. And I got her number. And this was before like all this online messaging stuff was available. And I got her number and I was like, you know, hey, and I called her and it was so nerve wracking and everything. And I was like, so what do you think? Do you want to go get a cup of coffee sometime? I don't like coffee. Okay. How about you want to go get a burger? And she's like, I don't eat red meat. And I'm like, well, you want to go see a movie sometime? She's like, I'm dating somebody. And I'm like, you waited until that question to answer that you were dating somebody? Why'd you make me go through the I don't like coffee, I don't eat red meat stuff? Like, why didn't you just come out?
Why'd you give me your phone number? Get out of here.
Well, that too. Like, and come to find out, you know, she gave me her phone number and it took me like 2 weeks before I called. And in the span of that 2 weeks was when she started dating this person, right?
I see.
So then, all right, so they're dating, whatever, you know, and I'd see her because I was a percussion major. She was a dance major. We were doing a bunch of shows together, you know, all this kind of stuff, right? And so I'd see her all the time. And then her boyfriend would be there too. And I'd be like, hey, whatever. And all this craziness, right? And, you know, like still I'm like, I really would like to date this girl. I really like this girl, They get engaged. And I kind of wrote it off at that point. And I'm like, well, they're engaged, you know, hey, whatever. They were engaged for like 14 months. And then they broke up. And then I married her. And now we're divorced. Life is messed up. And you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
It's true.
You never know when something's going to change. You never know when someone's going to, like you might go out with this, like, okay, so let's say they break up. You guys get together and you find out that she really, really, really stinks up the bathroom. Like with perfume.
Oh, nice. Nice touch there, Joe. I was like, this salt on my fish. That was good.
And you might find out that you guys aren't really that great together. Or you might find out that you are really great together. Or the opportunity may never happen. Who knows? You never, ever know what's going to happen, right? But no matter what happens, what you certainly should focus on doing is detaching this emotional attachment that you have. I have a crush. I really want this person. And that's key. The word want. I want this person in my life. And it's so interesting because we trick ourselves all the time. You talked in your post about, I want to support them and be selfless and happy for them. And you talked about being selfless. And Ryan talked about how being selfless that's not the goal. The goal is charity. It's not selflessness. Because here's the thing, if we take things to the angle of I'm going to be selfless, I'm going to not consider my own feelings, I'm going to just do what, I'm going to do everything I can to serve them and to serve their needs and to serve their desires and all this kind of stuff, and I'm going to throw my whole self into this. Then you're not taking care of yourself. And so what kind of a gift are you to that person? If we don't take care of the self, the gift that we're giving to this person, which is ourselves, if we don't take care of ourselves, what kind of gift is that? Maybe not a very good one. And I can tell you from experience that this selfless idea of, hey, I'm a husband. I'm here to serve my wife. I'm here to do, I love her. And love goes beyond just feelings. Love is a conscious decision that you make. It's an act of the will to love someone. And we can love people, but Ryan hit the nail on the head. He said to love someone is to desire the best for them. But most of the time we talk about we want to love selflessly, but the goal is for us to get them so I can love them selflessly. But there's a selfish overtone in there because I want them. So, I'm sorry. I get a little riled up sometimes. Good. But I've been in this situation so many times with lots and lots of different people where I've been emotionally attached. And, I can just feel myself drawn to them, and like I'm obsessing about them. I'm thinking about them all the time. And I'm like, they're always on my mind and I can't get them out, and I just need to be talking to them, or I need to be interacting with them, or I need to be doing something for them, or whatever it is, right? And we get so caught in this trap. And when we're there, we are the least attractive to them we possibly could be. unless they're psycho.
That's true.
Because then they see the weakness and they capitalize on it. And they're like, oh, I got something here. I got something here I can use. I got something here that I can get my way with. I got something here I can get anything I want because they're going to do it for me, and da 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 da. And all I have to do is ask. And, before I even finish the question, they're going to have it for me. And I'm going to be able to walk all over them. That's garbage.
It's also why you need to love yourself so you can defend against evils of this world.
I have trouble with that one. We'll address that one at a different time. Self-love is a challenge. It's a challenge for a lot of people. It's a challenge for all of us. I don't know. And I'm not talking about self-love that's like, oh, look at me. Look at how great I am. I'm so great. I just love myself. I'm the number one thing in the universe. No. A healthy self-love is not arrogance.
Right.
However, you can use, if you are picking up my demeanor here, you're probably hearing a little bit of anger, rage. I'd be throwing my controller on the ground, rage quitting. You can use that emotion to help you detach. That's okay. I've had to do that in my own dealings where I'm starting to feel myself be attached to someone. Well, I gotta figure out how to detach myself. So I gotta go no contact or something. I gotta kind of try and get them away from me, spend as little time as possible with them as I can. So then I can not be thinking about them. But the key then is to replace that thought time with something else. Maybe a hobby, maybe a goal. I would say definitely, if you can get yourself into something else, not another person, but something that you like to do, something that you've, maybe reignite an old passion that you used to have, or maybe find something totally new, like underwater basket weaving or something, who knows, right? If you find something you can do, that can help you pass the time necessary to detach. Because unfortunately, one of the biggest components of this is time. And that can be really hard. Because then you're just passing time and it's empty time because you're not talking to them or you're not hearing from them or you're not looking at them or whatever, and your brain is still obsessing over them. And so I've had to catch myself when I'm obsessing or I'm thinking about somebody. I have to stop myself and say, no, I'm going to focus on this instead. I'm going to go do this instead. And then, I'll say things to myself like, well, good for them. And I'll throw some colorful language in there because whatever. Be like, good for them. I just picture them. And you've probably read this. Frolicking off into the sunset. Don't stop until you get to the sun, by the way. Go burn yourselves alive, please. Sorry.
Oh, gosh. Oh my gosh.
Make sure you frolic all the way to the sunset.
I want to see you floating off into space. Happily ever. No. Yeah.
But I picture them, butterflies and rainbows and sunshine, and they're frolicking around and rolling around in a field of poison ivy. Yeah. Whatever, and so I've had to make myself angry at times, in order to create the discipline I needed to detach myself. And I also needed to understand the truth that when I'm stuck in that emotional attachment, the chances I have with that person, the chances I have of getting the thing I want that's making me act this way are the lowest possible. My chances would be better if they didn't know me at all and I ran into them and just like started a whole new friendship, like I met them for the first time. My chances would be better then than when I'm in that emotional attachment state. And not only that, if you succeed in that emotional attachment state, if you get that person, what happens is they got you. Because if they're attracted to that, more than likely they're manipulative and they will use you. Because they don't respect you. They love themselves inordinately, not healthily. And they're going to use you for whatever they can get. And I started to notice that. A lot of people that I had attachments to, I'm like, they're being friendly to me, but really what's happening is they don't really care about me. They care about themselves and that they're getting whatever they want from me. Whether it's an attachment to one of my friends or, validation or whatever. If I start buying them gifts or something, and they're getting gifts and, like they're stringing me along so they can get what they want out of me. And that I get so mad. I'm sorry. The science?
Rightly so.
The whole purpose for me coming straight at you like this is not to demoralize you. I love you. It's not to, be like, hey, like you're so off track. No. I want to help in some way, help you realize that the way through this is for you to develop some autonomy. And by that, what I mean by that is you think for yourself. You're not dependent on this person to be happy. You're not dependent on any person to be happy. And even though we go through these things and they can hurt. Yes, it hurts. I'm sorry. Emotional attachment hurts. You know what hurts worse? Is that emotional attachment then being used against you for years and decades. And then it crashes and burns anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, science, you're awesome. I love you. I hope I didn't hurt you. My goal is not to hurt you. My goal is to help you take the necessary steps to undo the attachment, to undo the obsession, to undo the crush. Because a lot of times when we crush on somebody, it's not attractive to them. And when this type of thing happens, it hurts. We feel like things are going to be awkward. Work feels like it's going to be awkward and everything. And I would recommend at work, I know that was kind of the crux of the whole issue, is like, how do I face them at work?
Mm-hmm.
I would say face them as little as possible at work. If you can work in a different department or a different area or on a different task, do that. And I would avoid them. I'd be cordial. I'd be friendly. I'd be non-combative. I wouldn't be mean. I wouldn't be angry. I wouldn't be like sarcastic with them or anything. But I would be all business. You know, they come to me for some work-related thing because hey, treat them like somebody you hardly even know that you're not attracted to. How would you treat them at work? Well, maybe you'd be friendly and you'd help them get what they needed from you at work. You know, you do the work-related stuff, whatever, right? But it wouldn't be awkward. And the same thing here. Now, it's been building for a while. You know, she's been a really, great friend, a very, understanding, and she's, listened to you, and we can develop attachments to those people in our lives very easily because of the feeling we get when we're with them, because they're understanding and they listen and they're open and, they're allowing us to be honest. But yeah, and then once we're in that attached phase, this becomes a lot more difficult. So, I hate people who give advice like, well, you shouldn't have did that in the first place. I remember getting financial advice from somebody. I was like, well, I'm massively in debt and this and that and da-da-da-da-da, and I don't know how to get out. And they're like, well, the answer is you don't do that in the first place. And I'm like, okay, thank you, not for your help,
I did it.
which was none.
What do I do?
Like, exactly. Like, I understand not to do that, and I will duly note that for later, but now here I am, and I need to figure out how to fix it. And they're like, well, I don't know. I just never did something that stupid. I'm like, well, then you suck. You're not going to help me at all. So how do you get out? There's a time component here. Might take a few weeks, might take a few months. I would say it'll probably at least take a few weeks before you can start getting your head, and it doesn't necessarily have to be no contact. And you can't probably go no contact because of the work situation. But that time, like, say, okay, starting today, I am, going to do what I can to start undoing this attachment. And it's going to take a component of time, and it's going to take a component of refocusing. And one of the best things you can do is focus on, if you have some kind of personal life goal, if you have some kind of dream of something you wanted to achieve, if you had something like that, get wrapped up in it. Get wrapped up in that thing you're passionate about, that thing you want to work toward. And it can be silly. It doesn't even have to be like something that the rest of the world would think was cool. I wanted to be a musician. You know what? My high school guidance counselor laughed at me. Great counsel.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, get into something. Get into something that's just you doing that thing. And fall in love with that. And then the first day is going to be really hard. The second day is going to be a little bit easier. The third day, a little bit easier. The fourth day, a little bit easier. And maybe the fifth day, you'll have a resurgence of something and you'll obsess a little bit and you'll be like, and maybe sometimes, because here's the thing, it's an addiction.
Mm-hmm.
We get addicted to this person, to the feelings we have about this person. We get addicted to it. And so addictions take some time to break. But like I said, This is a habit that your brain has gotten into. You can't ever just stop a habit. You have to replace the habit. So this habit of being, emotionally attached to this person needs to be replaced by something else. And then the more you go in that direction, and if you fail, if you fall, if you feel like it's not going well, okay, this day is done. I'm going to bed. I'm going to try again tomorrow. And just keep trying again. Because, man, what it is, I feel like I've been coming straight at you, and I apologize. But the more we go down this path, the more we are enslaved by it. And I think I said it in the server that this type of attachment is a one-way ticket to emotional slavery. And if you marry that person, it becomes physical slavery. And that's not a loving relationship. That's not a beneficial relationship for either of you. Because then you are being used and abused, and they are abusing you. And that's not healthy for them or you. So, again, my apologies, but I love you. And I hope that maybe I could shake you a little bit and help you understand. Look, we get caught up in these feelings, but the reality is, the more attached we are, the less likely it is for us to have a good, solid relationship with this person. Because our motives are wrong, and then their motives become wrong, and then it just, it just becomes wrong. So anyway, I'm going to stop myself before I go any further because I've already talked for way too long. And Ryan, do you have anything else you want to say about this topic?
I want to say, Joe, what you said was absolutely on point. That was fantastic, and I really liked everything you said. It's so strange and true. When we don't love ourselves, we are so unattractive, and one of the main reasons for that is a biological reason. Since like this has been recorded since like the beginning of humanity, and it's sort of a biological wiring that we're attracted to, in some part, success. Especially tends to be that females are attracted to successful males, and that's not a stereotype of sexism. That's just a biological trait that tends to show itself, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, because what ends up happening is that women test the man and say, can you try to be more successful? And it pushes the man forward to be more successful and be more attractive to the woman, and that's a good thing. When a man doesn't have love for himself, it's really unattractive, because it shows none of the traits that women are naturally attracted to. And
women are messed up anyway. Sorry, I'm just kidding.
So if you do find someone, oh yeah, men too, for sure. This does apply in certain ways, both ways, right? But when you, like Joe said, when you do find someone who's attracted to your lack of love in yourself, your willingness to be selfless to a fault, that person is probably someone that will take advantage of you. Generally, not even almost probably. That is someone who is aiming to take advantage of you, because they're attracted to something in you that you should despise. So, I really like what
Amen.
Joe said. Amen. I really like what Joe had to say about all of that. And science, sorry to hit so hard on this. And I really also like what you said, Joe, about um, obviously you can't distance yourself, but what you can do at work. And I know this seems hard, and this isn't the way I would handle this myself. It might be slightly different than Joe, but it's kind of the similar vein of things. Here's the situation. I'm going to say this a couple times. Your emotion and logic will adhere to the reality that you show it. Okay? Your emotions and your logic, both of them, will adhere to the reality that you show it. And by adhere, I mean, yes, believe in and follow that definition, but also the definition of like adherence, like adhesive, to adhere to stick to it, right? Your emotions and logic will literally stick to the reality that you show it. And so if you're off daydreaming or being sad or whatever about the fact that you don't have this person, that's what your emotions and logic are going to adhere themselves to. That reality that you're showing it in your head. And when you're out there in the real world, if you're still flirting with this girl or whatever, not saying that you were, just giving that as a notion of like, if you're still doing everything the same that you were doing before, as far as how you treat this girl and how you are allowing yourself to be attached, right? Your emotions and your logic will formulate themselves so that they are stuck to that position.
Mm-hmm.
And they follow through with that position. So what Joe is trying to say is what you need is a change up of how you act out in reality and a change up of how you act out in your brain, right? And so when you're not with her, to focus on things that have nothing to do with her allows your brain to slowly peel off from that idea of reality, and it will know your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain doesn't know the difference between, like, your subconscious brain, which your emotions and logic are sticking to, doesn't know the difference between when you imagine something or when you actually act it out. Like, logically, you know the difference, right? You think you do. But there's some part of you that doesn't. And that part of you is what guides your actions. And so that part of you that guides your actions and guides your emotions, you need to detach for that part, right? What I mean, you need to detach yourself so that that part can get with the program. Because there's a part of our brains that decides and regulates and understands patterns in the world, and it figures out what is reality and what is not reality. And the only thing it has to the only thing it can like learn from it, or sorry, rather it tries to learn from every experience that we offer it. So you're going to want to spend time away from this person. When you're not with them, you don't have to think about them all the time. And if you do think about them solely as a friend and not someone who's been a love interest, because otherwise you're going to continue down that path that's going to hurt.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a long path to get out. And then secondly, what are you doing in the physical reality at your work? How are you treating things? Now, I'm not the kind of person to give someone a cold shoulder. Thank you. Shoulder. I put the sh at the wrong part. Almost said soldier. Anyways, I'm not the kind of person to give someone a cold shoulder.
Cold
Oh my gosh, I
soldier.
can't speak that. Cold soldier. So a cold soldier. I'm not that kind of person. I want to treat them with all of my love and kindness that I can. But I also need to make sure that my mind isn't reading into that and thinking that that's reality, that we're together, because we're not. And that's not something that's helpful to imagine that as a reality. So as Joe is saying, treat them like a coworker, not a love interest.
Mm-hmm.
Treat them like a coworker that, sure, you're friendly with them because they're a coworker and you're nice to all your coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
That way, in the reality, your mind can learn from it and say, oh, that's not reality. Okay. And then slowly those emotions start to just peel off like, oh, that's not reality. Okay, let's make a separation here. That's not reality. Okay. And then it just slowly conforms to the new reality you're showing it until the tape is the adhesive, the way your brain likes to adhere to motives and things. That can be changed and peeled off from that idea. And so I just want to leave you with that. As a as a as a tip, I suppose, as in what actions can you take? And that's my action. Recognize your emotions and your logic will adhere to the reality that you show it. And so you have to make sure you're showing it the reality that will lead itself away from pain and towards good. But yeah, I think everything that was said is worth listening to again, especially by Joe. So even though Joe might feel like he hit real hard, I think that's fine. I think that those are hard lessons for all of us that all of us need to learn, especially if we ever plan on addressing our own self-confidence issues and our love life. And you're trying to mix those two things together, and I luckily learned in my early 20s that you can't mix those two things together and get a good outcome. And I was happy that I learned that back then. And it helped me a lot, but it doesn't mean every relationship went fine after that, you know? It just helped me a lot. So just saying, yeah. So thanks, Joe. And thank you so much, Science. Science rocks. You rock. And we're so happy that you were able to, we're so happy that you gave it to us to talk about, and we hope that it was helpful. And yeah, we love you. So anyways, thank you.
And I want to tell you one more thing, that you can do it. You can detach emotionally. It's not going to feel possible at first. You're going to look down the throat of the considering what I said about detaching and going for however long and whatever, and kind of reforming your brain around this idea of not being attached. You're going to look at that and you're going to be like, that is impossible. And it's because you're in this soup. You're kind of stuck in this emotional soup. And you've been there for a while, maybe. And now that this is how life is and how it has been for so long, and on your mind is this person all the time, and you're going to feel like there's no way that'll ever change. But you can. And the first couple days, it helped, when I had to dig myself out of this, it helped me to remind myself. It's interesting how all this changes. But at first, I was like, if I want a shot with this person, I need to detach from them. Once I got that idea and I hung my hat on that idea, and I was like, okay, I believe this. Logically, this all makes sense. I look back to experiences when that girl was obsessed with me and how I felt as the person that was being obsessed about. And I was like, if I even want a shot with this person, I gotta not be obsessed like this. I gotta kill this infatuation. I gotta undo this obsession. I gotta remove this attachment if I want a shot. And so it was like, at first it was a mission like, okay, I'm going to get her because I'm going to detach. And that's going to make me attractive again, right? And so it was like this idea of, hey, it was a means for me to eventually get together with him. And I told myself that in the beginning to kind of get myself started. And that's totally okay. And I would tell you, do that. Because your chances are so much better if you're not emotionally attached like this. They are. 100,000 times better. 100,000 times better. You show up and you're autonomous and you're focused on other stuff and you're moving in a direction and you're going places and all this, and you're like, focused on the goals that you have and stuff like that. Now all of a sudden you're attractive. And then she might start obsessing about you. She might all of a sudden go, oh man, I made the wrong choice by dating this dude. Now I ought to be dating science. Which sounds weird. I'm dating science.
Yeah, that sounds like a whole different thing. Dating science. It's like, okay.
But, and you can totally, because that could happen. And so I would tell myself that. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to finally have a shot. So it was really all about, still, me doing that was all about getting the girl. Right? And then what happens is some time goes by and you're like, what was I even obsessed about? I got all this other stuff going on, and your brain starts to reform its trails, and, you start to get back on track, and you're not dependent on the idea of this person anymore. And then what happens is even if I did become attractive to them or not, it doesn't matter to me anymore, because whatever. I got other stuff to focus on. Right? So even if you have to start by telling yourself, the only way I could possibly ever have this person as my girlfriend is to detach emotionally. And then that might motivate you enough to start the process. And that's totally okay to do. And you can hold on to that. You can use that as motivation for as long as you need to. But I will tell you, eventually, what happens, the more you distance yourself, the more you separate yourself, the more you do these things, you'll start to figure out, I'm not dependent on them. I don't need her to be my girlfriend. And you can really say legitimately and not sarcastically, I wish them all the best. Best of luck. Relationships are hard. Good luck. And you can say it sincerely rather than, like before, before I was detached, I'd be like, well, have fun. Have fun frolicking in your poison ivy and hope you choke on your butterflies and rainbows while you get burnt by the sun. Like all these things that fly through my sadistic brain. Like, but you can say with all sincerity, hey, happy for you. Because you got other stuff going on. You've got a direction for you that doesn't need another person. Because if we ever need another person, that's immediate red flag. I'm off track. If I need a person to get through a day or to get through, some kind of thing or whatever, if I need them, I need contact with them, immediately I'm off track if I need somebody. Because eventually I'm not going to have them anymore. Even if I marry them, eventually one of us is going to die. Unless we die at the same exact time, which is pretty rare. But there's going to come a time when you're not going to have them anymore. So if we ever place a need on a relationship or a person, immediately we're off track. So anyway, we've gone over.
I know, and we only did 2 topics. Isn't that crazy? Wow. Guys picked good topics. Ash and science.
Yep. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for putting up with my rant. I can totally see our numbers falling off the cliff as soon as I start talking.
That's not true. I'll just make stuff up, man.
But anyway, thank you guys.
The chat goes silent because they're listening so intently. They're like, oh my gosh, this guy's Guy's going off. I gotta hear
No.
this.
The chat
I'm
goes
just kidding.
silent because they ditch, man. That's what happens. I know.
That's so
It's
true. Now then, why do they
totally
all
okay.
show back up after you're done talking, man?
They're like mute.
And
then
oh,
they're
he's my
watching the
face
video.
isn't
They're
on
like
screen anymore.
when's Ryan's face gonna come back up here? Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh.
How long do I have to keep looking at Joe? Like that dude.
Super. I know, guys. It's hard to look at Joe because it's hard to look at something
Don't
so
even.
beautiful.
Don't even.
Because
don't even.
You knew where I was going with that.
Don't even. I did. I'll cut you off before you finish.
If you guys can see, I got a bunch of stars here. These are hand knitted by August stars. So I showed them off in my little flashy display over here. Thank you so much, August. That is so awesome. He sent me a letter at Christmas, but I didn't get it until just like literally a couple days ago. So I just wanted to say thank you, August. You're so amazing. Your letter is so kind, and yeah, I was blown away. And thank you. Yeah, you're awesome, dude. You're awesome. Anyways, yeah, it's currently 30 minutes after the show. So thank you guys for being with us and sticking with us so long. We love you and we really appreciate you. Now, does Nyansai sound like me?
Yep. Because you've said stuff like that. Joe, you add so much value to the topic. Your opinions are useful and important. And I'm just like,
I never said that. Come on. No, that's literally something
you did.
I probably have definitely
said.
You
did. You did say that. I remember.
Well, then it's just true. It's just true. Even if it does, just because it sounds like me doesn't mean it's not true. Come on, Joe. I didn't tell her to say that.
Fine. Fine.
Talk to her every day, but I didn't tell her to say
that. Fine. Take it easy now.
Take it easy now. We love you, Joe.
All right. Well, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sticking around and for all of your contributions in the chat. Thank you for, just the topics. And again, if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, you can feel free to go to don'tworrywednesday.com, click the submit a topic button, and you will be presented with a form to fill out, and you can fill out the form. And we would be happy, more than happy, to do your topic. And yeah, we love you guys. We could not do this show without you. I mean, we could. It'd just be really boring for us, and nobody would see it. And so, yeah.
I suppose you're right. And
actually, no, it wouldn't be boring.
So it'd be all our own topics, which would be really boring.
I mean, we could entertain ourselves.
Oh, yeah, sure. It wouldn't be boring for us. It'd be boring for everybody else, I guess.
Exactly. But anyway, you guys make this show happen. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you next week on Don't Worry Wednesday. And until then, have a wonderful life. And we will see you next time right here. So take care, you guys. We love you.
Bye now. Peace.